Would you have handled it differently?
Of course. Of course. I mean, on a conversation about aging, what Lara Trump said aged well, and what I said aged poorly, 100%. Now, she obviously saw the non-functioning Biden in a way that I had not really seen at that point. She was right, I was wrong, 100%. Yeah.
Over here in my ecosphere, we were covering all of these. It wasn't just falling down. It was getting lost. It was some of the stuff you report in your book, we knew and we were reporting on, like the multi-jump cuts in the videos of him, where it was obvious he couldn't get through a 1-minute take. It was clear to us that he was using teleprompter, and there was some reporting on that at the time, all of which the White House was denying. Now, the current White House, I have some connections. With the Joe Biden White House, I had none. But you did. There was an attempted cover-up. It could only ever work if you allowed it, if the press allowed it. Some of us tried not to, and some of us were complicit.
The Biden White House did not like me. Okay, I do not have great connections with the Biden White House.
Well, clearly you have a lot of sources. You say you talked to over 200 sources for this book. So you have some
election,
you could have called and worked.
No, that's the point, is that they were not being honest. That's
well,
the
how
point.
did the Wall Street Journal get it in June of 2024? And Jake Tapper and CNN couldn't find sources for this story then before he dropped out?
Annie Linsky and Siobhan Hughes did an amazing job in their reporting. And they should be heralded, and I heralded them. I had them on my show right after the debate to talk about their great reporting. But Annie Linsky,
after the debate, but you did not put them on when they published that story, which was before the debate.
Correct. I don't know what the booking situation was, but it wasn't because I didn't want them. I'm sure I said that day, let's book. I'm sure I said that day, let's book that. Did they?
Yeah, you put on a Democrat, and you allowed the Democrat to rip on the report as a Rupert Murdoch sponsored hit piece.
No.
It's just
Megyn.
Well, that's
Megyn,
what happened.
if we're going to do this, let's just stick to the facts here, okay? When there is a damaging report,
that's what I've been doing all along.
I'm talking about what you just said.
Didn't miss the biggest story of the century when it comes to presidential politics, and one of us did.
Jake Tapper, a.k.a. Fake Tapper, walked right into that one. I had to let that whole intro play because I think it pretty much it vindicated conservative media. Many people who had eyes, right? What was the name they called us? Conspiracy theorists. Oh, you guys are called. Oh, nothing's wrong with Joe Biden. F you. If you think something's wrong with Joe Biden, you got Democrats. You know, I got Democrats in my family. I got Democrats in my neighborhood. My close neighbors are Democrats on social media, trying to gaslight anybody from talking about Joe Biden. And even in my coverage, I'm not talking about Joe Biden. I'm talking about the situation surrounding Joe Biden. Because I feel like you guys abuse this man. In my estimation, let me know in the comment section if you agree with this take from me. But I feel like Biden was politically abused. This man had to carry the party on his back. Imagine that. 80-something years old, dealing with cancer, still has to carry this sorry excuse for a party on his back. And when he couldn't do no more, I just toss him aside. And now people want to hold you accountable for the political abuse you did to this man, and you want to talk about nothing but Trump. Me, the Biden cover-up is pretty bad, Dems, but Trump, okay, but the story is Biden's cover-up, right? Trump's cognitive test. You can't make this up. They don't want to talk about this stuff because this is a very uncomfortable kind of situation for them. And it is. Because these Democrats pretend they're so moral, they're so virtuous, until it's time to be moral and virtuous. A moral and virtuous person, like I'll give credit to Dean Phillips, who will be willing to speak out against or tell the truth about a situation or reality, even if it comes to the cost of him losing political sway. Remember all the disparaging things they used to say about Dean Phillips? Jake Tapper covered it. He was like, hey, some people are calling you despicable, narcissistic, self-centered. Look, jockeying for power. Look at all the gaslighting terms they did to Dean Phillips because he was willing to admit that Joe Biden is not fit to be president, is not fit to rerun for election again. But how the people in the media are covering it?
Actually, are you arguing that Joe Biden was fine during
I'm
his
not
term.
arguing that he was fine. I'm arguing that
You keep pivoting back to Trump, who's
I'm sorry.
clearly fine. I'm just asking you if you're arguing that something was not wrong with Joe Biden.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because Joe Biden is no longer the president.
But he was, and that's the story tonight.
Well, no, actually, Donald, stop. Let me finish. Let me finish what I'm saying, guys. Let me finish something. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. I would dearly love to see a cognitive test from him, because as somebody who's lived in the New York media market
No
for
one
the last
cares.
40 years.
No one cares. Look, I'm done. I'm done with the excuses for these people, bro. I'm telling you, my tolerance for Democrats right now is like this because of the fact that they covered it. They covered this stuff up. The fact that they kept saying, "Oh, conservative media is so biased. It's so unobjective." Like the same criticism I get on my channel. "Oh, Kenny, you're so narrow-minded. You keep only criticizing Democrats because Democrats have a lot of things I can criticize them for." And they swear they want to regain trust by the American public. They got a lot of work to do. Here's all the opportunities for you to confront that fact. Here's a clip of Jake Tapper admitting that legacy media has some soul searching to do, and conservative media was right all along about the Biden health scandal. Let's take a look.
Leading up to the debate, which you anchored, that June 27th debate, 2024, there was a ton of news leading into that debate in that month. And we look back at your coverage and found that you ignored it. Not only did you ignore the Jackie Walorski moment when you had him 13 days later, but you ignored the freeze up that he had at the Juneteenth celebration. You ignored what happened at the G7 when he wandered off and Giorgia Meloni, Prime Minister of Italy, had to go find him. You ignored the freeze up at the George Clooney LA fundraiser. You didn't cover it. You only covered it after the debate, after George Clooney wrote his op-ed. Jake, nobody made you do that. There was your network at every turn was telling us those were, quote, cheap fakes. And you were not combating that narrative. CNN was actively misleading us on what our very eyes were showing us. That's the truth. That's the record.
I will acknowledge that after I was named co-moderator of the debate, I tried to make sure that my coverage was fairly vanilla, both about Trump and about Biden, because I just wanted to get to the debate. And, the Biden people and the Trump people, I'm kind of frankly surprised that either one of them agreed to have me as a moderator, because both sides disliked me so much. But yeah, I remember that moment. And I remember that moment, the glitch at the immigration event, and not getting much attention outside of conservative media at all. And Alex and I are here to say that conservative media was right and conservative media was correct, and that there should be a lot of soul searching, not just among me, but among the legacy media to begin with, all of us, for how this was covered or not covered sufficiently.
I never seen Democrats, you guys, y'all know how to set yourselves up for failure. How is it that this is what I'm thinking, like Democrats and liberals, they have this attitude that they never believe that they could be the bad guy. They have this attitude like they can never be wrong about something. And I think this is what fuels their condescending attitudes, this holier than thou kind of stick they try to portray out in public, because they love optics. But when it comes to reality, they can't face reality. And this confrontation from Megyn Kelly, and how the excuses just crumbled. You saw it in the intro. He had every excuse. Oh, well, the Biden people kept us. Oh, well, you have a lot of connections. I don't have any connections to Democratic circles. I only have connections to Republican circles, says Megyn Kelly. You have connections to Democratic circles. You could have broke this story a lot earlier. And then the coup de grace. Ooh, I know it stung. I heard it. You heard the shots fired. I wasn't the one, and I'm quoting Megyn Kelly here, I wasn't the one who missed the biggest story in recent political history moment. Like that moment, you can feel the pain out of Jake Tapper's body. You're a journalist. That should kill you as a journalist. That you had every opportunity to be the one to be at the forefront of breaking this news, breaking this cover-up, breaking this scheme by a political party, abusing this man, to keep itself in power. And you didn't want to do it because what? Journalists don't want to help Donald Trump. That's why. Trump derangement syndrome.
To be transparent about his health records in an interview in 2020. I did ask him about the fact that voters
But then he wasn't.
thought that he was not transparent at all. No.
He promised you that
no.
he would be transparent about his health records, and then he wasn't. And when you sat with him again,
at all.
including 1 month after the Jackie Walorski thing, you didn't ask him about it. You didn't follow up on the fact that he was falling up the stairs, that he was losing his train of thought regularly, that he was slurring, that he was incomprehensible, that he was getting lost on the White House lawn. You sat right across from him and you asked none of that, notwithstanding the fact that he had promised you he would be fully transparent about his health issues.
Now, before he gives his excuses, those are good cases to make. Hey, why you hadn't? This is why that intro is succinctly summarized this entire video. He had every opportunity to be the one at the forefront of breaking this information. What's the point of journalists? What's the point? Let's ask ourselves a question. What's the point of a journalist if you find out things after the fact, not before the fact? Isn't the point of journalism is to break news, insights, bring a perspective, bring knowledge that will help deterrent something that's going to happen in the future? It's supposed to be proactive, not reactive. The book that came out in 2022, wouldn't it be more significant than it is now? Because everyone lived it already. We don't need a book. All the book does is confirm everything that everyone on the outside looking in knew about already. This is all you're doing. All you're doing is confirming, Jake Tapper, everything, every conspiracy theorist on the right has been saying about what's going on with Joe Biden. People were speculating, hey, I think Joe Biden's sick. Joe Biden might secretly have cancer. I remember people saying that in 2022. And now you just validate and confirm all this. And all we get is, oh, you were right. No, you should be fired. Fake Tapper should be fired. We should sign a petition saying that this man needs to be fired. Because you call yourself a journalist, but all your actions, it seemed like you were trying to play both sides of this. All your actions come across as a propagandist, not a journalist. You are what you repeatedly do. If you always are journalistic, you have integrity, you always get it down the middle, you always call it a line, that's a journalist. But at every point, you break stories, you ignore stories, you don't want to bring attention to certain things that could paint your party in a negative light. Like Kamala Harris's husband, alleged assault on a woman. Y'all didn't want to bring that up. No one on CNN wanted to talk to him about it, but they had every opportunity to do so. But you call yourself a journalist. But you want me to take you with more credibility than some random person on the internet. Get the F out of my face. I'm done. Let's continue.
That's true. But I did ask him about his age and the fact that the American people had concluded that even though he said whenever anybody brought up the subject of his age, watch me. And I said,
yes,
they're watching you and they are concerned that you were too old for this job.
But you know as well as I do that there's a way of, you can say, hey, there's this poll on your age, or you could say, you just forgot that Jackie Walorski was dead. You asked where she was moments after watching a videotape tribute to her. You lowered the flags at the White House after she died. This happened 13 days before you sat with him. There is a way of pressing a man like that on the actual infirmities to bring it home to him and to the audience, and you didn't do it.
If you're a political actor, I don't want to press him too hard. Let me softly. And that's something I've been accusing the media a lot, right? I keep telling you, journalism is the most liberal profession in America, in the world right now, because disproportionate amount of liberals are in journalism compared to conservatives. And when I make this argument, hey, that we have to factor in that bias could play a part in how these people approach their journalism. Many people say, no. These are professionals. Professionals don't let their bias get in the way. Lie. I have numerous examples of experts or professionals, right? From programmers to journalists, how their bias corrupted or made their products unusable. Journalists, your purpose, you have a function in society. Your service is to inform the American populace. If your bias gets in the way of that, you are not an effective journalist. Mm-hmm. And this is what Fake Tapper just got exposed for, being a propagandist. Just like when Google engineers created Gemini AI, and 94% of Google is liberal. Their liberal ideology and bias bled into their work, and Gemini AI was making black George Washingtons, black Nazis, historically inaccurate images. They had to go and fix that. And you think that the same kind of outcome is not happening with journalism?
That's correct. I didn't. And like I said, I feel humility about my coverage. I mean, it's not like I was asking him his favorite movie or his favorite color. We were talking about Putin. We were talking about other issues of national importance. But yeah, I mean, of course, I've said I look back at my coverage with humility. And I wish I did cover the issues of age and acuity, but I wish I had covered them much more. And I wish, I mean, of course, it's May 2025. Do I wish that in that 10, 15-minute interview I had with Biden in October 2022, that this had been the only subject? Because I had then
well, it wasn't
what I know
just
now.
that, though, Jake. It wasn't just that. I mean, you sat with him a couple of times in the course of his presidency, and these issues were not pressed. Well, there was at least that time, and then there was the time at the beginning. And but separate and apart from that, you covered the Biden's presidency. No. Let me just finish my point. You covered the Biden presidency.
I had one
okay,
interview
right,
with
and
him
it was
during the
13 days
presidency.
after the Jackie Walorski thing. But you covered the Biden presidency aggressively throughout the 4 years, and you didn't cover mental acuity hardly at all. I mean, time and time again, when issues came up, you seemed to be running cover for the president.
I don't think
interested.
that's true.
You didn't seem interested. I'll say that. You didn't seem interested. There's polls coming out saying that Biden is mentally unfit to be president. Y'all covered the recession stuff when majority of Americans believed that Joe Biden's economy was in a recession. Y'all covered that. But another poll, hey, majority of Americans believe that Biden is mentally unfit to be president. You didn't want to cover that? You didn't want to highlight that? But we're supposed to be giving you more credibility than the internet, right? Legacy media? By their fruits you shall know them. And we see your fruits, fake tapper. We see your fruits. We see many fruits of the liberal journalists. We see the fruits of journalism currently today. Liberal bias is a big problem. Liberal bias is holding journalism back. And the only way to rectify it is to bring more diversity of thought. You got to bring in more Scott Jennings. Sorry, we can't trust this political group called liberals to manage an industry where it's so crucial to the distribution of knowledge in our country. We can't give that much control and power to one political side. There needs to be more political parity in this profession. That is the only way I see remedying this blind spot it seems like journalists has for democratic buffoonery. But I digress. Let's continue.
Well, I mean, we'll start with the Lara Trump issue that you referred. Here it is. This happened in 2020.
Joe Biden, as we all know, has worked to overcome a stutter. How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
you are
to watch somebody on stage search for
that's so
questions.
amazing.
You're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I
a
think that you were
stuttering.
mocking his stutter.
Idea.
And this is the biggest problem I think I had with liberals, and I document this a lot when I talk about liberals sometimes, is that they have this immediate need to just dismiss everything you say, not acknowledge, not understand your concerns. And this is how they get blindsided. They talk about conservatives being in a cult, right? When they were saying we were pushing cheap fakes and all this stuff. Oh, look at this disinformation network. They were so worried about disinformation, right? WEF and all these world, whatever globalist agendas they have, they're worried about disinformation. But then the so-called thing that was framed as disinformation was actually the truth. Just because I have a claim that cannot be validated doesn't mean it's false inherently. And this is the dumb kind of tactics that liberals push. It'll be interesting to see how fake tapper get around from this one.
Yeah, Joe Biden.
Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
And it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel
Lara
sorry
Trump.
for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it. I'm sure it was from a place of concern. We all believe that. Lara Trump, thank you so much.
My God.
Do you want to apologize to Lara Trump now?
I've already apologized to her. I called her months ago.
And what did she say?
I was right.
I mean, I don't want to disclose the contents of a private conversation, but I thought the conversation went well. And she has said this publicly, so I feel fine sharing it. She said that she would never mock anybody's stutter. But I mean, after we did the research for this book, and I realized how bad his acuity issues were, I called Lara Trump and I said, you were right.
He shouldn't be
She was
humbled.
totally right. That's the thing.
He shouldn't be humbled. He should be humiliated. Humiliated by that clip. Like the immediate reaction, dismissal. Like, I don't get this idea. Oh, I'm just going to dismiss your turn. Like I will hear you out, and then I'm like, this is what I don't like about this thing. Then I dismiss. But liberals just dismiss automatically, especially if it comes across negative for a perceived, a preferable view or preferable stance that they have. And this automatic, this habit that liberals have, they need to unhabit it out of them because it's really holding them back.
Because when I watched that clip, and I'm giving voice to what a lot of people watching the show are feeling, Jake, I feel angry because she was right. And not only did you not allow her to make her comments, but you seemed to try to humiliate her. You had a hostility toward the position, but she was totally right. And then you lectured her on how she was in no position to diagnose cognitive decline.
Trust the experts, fallacy of authority. You see how liberals abused it? Because it so happens a lot of these experts, they're left-leaning. So it's almost like, oh, I'm using my own source to validate my own claim. That's what liberals are doing when they use an appeal to authority, at least here in America, at least.
Which you guys do at length, including on page 4 of your book. You describe at length his cognitive decline, which is all she tried to do with you. But you had such a visceral reaction to her. And my feeling is that's because you didn't want to hear it.
No,
exactly. Nope. That's all I need to hear. And I think that's all you guys seen enough. I think that succinctly brings up this whole coverage that the mainstream media has been doing. And this is why I point out, I highlight media bias. I say, hey, I'd rather have an honest biased person than a dishonest, objective person. And this is what the legacy media comes across as, a dishonest, objective person. They pretend that they're objective, but really they filter out certain things that they don't want to bring attention to, that might hurt a narrative that they want to portray out into the audience. Me, I try to at least, I let you hear CNN and I just give you my thoughts and say, I don't agree with this. I'm not saying it's true or false. I don't agree with this. Here's why. Legacy media don't even give you that. They sit here and look at you crazy if you contradict the narrative that they're trying to push out, the framing that they're trying to push out. Like that CNN lady, when Scott Jennings is trying to talk about the Biden cover-up, she wants to talk about Trump because she don't want to look bad. The Democrats don't want to eat humble pie. But, I digress. Let me know your thoughts and perspective in the comment section down below, how Megyn Kelly confronted Jake Tapper, or as he's now known, Fake Tapper. Let me know your thoughts and perspective. I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video if you feel so inclined. It really does help me out in the algorithm. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.